Hello guys, welcome back to Cityburg on a widescreen resolution. This video is going to be interesting, even though you might have seen some parts of it on TikTok. But here, you're watching it on a big screen, even if not, on the phone this is in much better quality, which is a whole different experience. Here I would like to show you the life and development of the city much better and more detailed. This video is like a summary of the latest work in the city, maybe of the previous week. Specifically, we're actively modernizing the city to make it better for the citizens with accessible surroundings and transportation, because we are in modern age. First up, of course, was the historical center of Cityburg. I want to make a large part of it pedestrian, including the Central Avenue. Eventually, I'd like to make the historical center fully commercial, which means we'll need to relocate the residents of the old housing. First, this will make the center lively and continue to attract people. And second, maybe it's not comfortable, I think. Living in the old houses, so we need to convert them into exhibition spaces, museums, shops and boutiques. But of course, I'll just change the purpose of the buildings. They will all remain in their places. If some of you had a house here, don't worry, you will save your property. Since the medieval construction, you should notice that I used the narrow streets, the alley, not the vanilla ones, not the vanilla streets. And now I have to use a node controller to manually reduce the width of new pedestrian ones. I've searched for all possible types of pedestrian roads, but for some reason I couldn't find any small versions. I mean, the allays that could be on the Steam Workshop. But that's okay, there won't be very many of them. As you can see, I'm replacing the standard trees with another ones because the vanilla trees are so ugly. And yeah, I'm still very drawn to the historical part of the city. It has something very warm and special about it. Although I do like laying out infrastructure in new districts, but yeah, the center with the cathedral is my one love. So let me share some facts about the city. Take the cathedral, for example. It's of course a prototype from the Steam Workshop of the Cologne Cathedral in Germany. I'm really grateful to the creator and I even sent them a Steam gift as a thanks for this masterpiece. And yes, sometimes some mods glitch out for some reason. Like here, the advanced vehicle mode often removes the limit on old wagons and horses, even though I haven't used them in a long time. Yeah, the game has a life of its own sometimes. Yeah, returning to the interesting facts about the cathedral. Well, the cathedral is awesome, but the details could be better, especially the textures. I have an idea to make my own cathedral asset in the future, perhaps for the City Skylines too. But if there is sufficient support, why not to make an asset for the first part as well? The medieval houses, for example, those are true art. If you zoom in, you can see the patterns, the woodwork. The textures are just top. With the cathedral I had to remove a very poor looking spire in the middle, and I decorated it with the various Gothic towers and sculptures manually. Thankfully, I found an asset of another Gothic structure where I took these parts. So, as I was saying, the historic center will be pedestrian focused, but I'm not gonna fully restrict car traffic everywhere. It will be, or there is already pedestrian promenade to the left of the port. Then the blocks next to the Cathedral Square up to the wall. Then the main avenue, but again not completely, just up to the military gates. Yeah, they're called military gates because there was a military checkpoint and a small fortress, but with the canal coming in, the fortress and part of the old wall were gone, which we now really protect and cherish, of course. Then the streets around the cathedral and literally 4 blocks to the right of the port will be pedestrian, and that's about it. We'll see how it goes from there, but but even now the logistics center is working at its limit. We will either have to build a second one eventually or stick to a pedestrian zone of its size. By the way, people often ask me about the LUT I use. It's called Nemesis LUT. I really like it. I started using it back when the city was in the Renaissance era, but then for some reason I began experimenting with color corrections, trying to find the best fit for me. That's why you can see different color frames in the time lapses as the eras change. But in the end, I went back to it, because not everything that's realistic looks good. I was trying to find a realistic LUT, but it all turned out too gray or too greenish or too blue. With this one, though, it creates such a vibrant, maybe even a bit fairy tale-like atmosphere, which I prefer. Will I change the color in the future era? Yeah, I've thought about it. I think I'll have to. Because I'd like to have some dark, rainy theme for Cyberpunk or for the future to get the right vibe, and it'll be interesting to see. About those flower beds that usually line different roads, I've never liked that loud brown strip of soil that looks kinda ugly and not realistic. After all, in reality, the ground usually gets overgrown with all sorts of plants pretty quickly. But really, the administration should take care of this in advance and plant some nice flowers and grass like how they do it incredibly skillfully here where I live, in France. So now let's move on to a really iconic modernization. By the way, a separate video about this on TikTok already hit 800k views, and for some reason it attracted a lot of Russian-speaking viewers. Привет всем русскоговорящим или русскопонимающим. But anyway, I just had to do something special at this intersection because it's the cradle of the city's history, where it all started, and of course, I think it will continue to modernize in the future, but still keeping some historical parallels. Right, so you can see through the surface that there are cars underground. That's the underground parking, which is temporarily closed. But I've got a plan for getting it back up and running. The thing is, the parking exit turned into a pedestrian zone, so now I need to organize an underground entrance from the other side, where there is already car access. With everything so densely packed here, it's pretty tough to change anything. It's like building in Rome or some other ancient city where every inch of ground might hold something historical. For instance, I can already remove the cobblestone textures that I made with the intersection marking tools. And yeah, the main challenge here is connecting roads without gaps, but they always end up appearing. So that's where the procedural objects mod comes in handy to patch things up. I could lay down a green layer without any gray one, but then you can be sure, for example, that the roof of the underground parking won't be green. Procedural objects is a really cool mod. You can create pretty much anything with it, but I still like to mix it with real assets, because with procedural objects I get these artificial feelings like I'm not building a city but just mixing textures in Photoshop. Though, of course, sometimes the whole process of building a city in such simulators does feel like Photoshop. And then, of course, it's hard to place different objects, trees or props on such objects, because the game doesn't recognize these textures as surfaces. You have to first place trees where there is real ground, and then use Mover to copy and place them where needed. But as you can see, there is no real difficulty in it. For the road by the waterfront that goes here, it's almost empty now, so we don't need it to be so wide. I think we could just have two lines and share them with the tram. And yes, I'm really looking forward to modernize the port, changing the piers and updating the stops for the big ships and ferries. Those grey spots by the port, they've always been a bit of an eyesore, but I just couldn't find the time for them. Plus, it's a complex situation with the underground parking layers, the promenade nearby and the ground level, so I kept putting off doing something about it. Ideally, I'd come up with something cooler, but for now, let's at least get some planters in there. It'll fill the space a bit more. Oh, and you know what? There used to be an entrance to the underground passage to the Cathedral Square metro station right here, but since it was barely used, I moved it inside the port. And those little boats, they've been here since the earliest settlements, so I decided to keep them as a memory. I just shuffle them around sometimes so they don't get lost. There are tons of these little details in the city. Too bad TikTok's format didn't really allow for showcasing them. That's why I'm gonna try to start posting everything on YouTube first, so just a heads up that changes are coming. Don't forget to subscribe right here. Totally, this place is a big deal for the city. It's where the first tram line started and the first metro station too. Remember the custom metro station I made that looks like a Gothic cathedral vault? Well, it's not as busy as I hoped it will be. I thought it'd be a key transport hub, but turns out everyone prefers the second metro line. This station is here as well, but it just got a regular entrance, nothing fancy. Maybe it's because the Gothic one is so deep underground and folks don't want to go down that far. If anyone knows how the simulation works, drop a comment. Does the depth of a station affect route planning and people's choice for a shorter trip? But no regrets about building it. I've got plans for it, maybe repurpose it into a regional rail station. Then it'll really be an important hub, a whole underground station right by the port. The planters, of course, there are some ready to use in Steam Workshop, but it's not just about subscribing to them and then carrying on. Sometimes when you're building something with this little stuff, it breaks up the whole flow of creating, because you have to save the game and hope it all saves properly, and then add the new assets and start the game again. And imagine loading the game with so many mods and assets is tough. It's like waiting for maybe 10 long minutes, fingers crossed, hoping it doesn't crash, because that happens often. And then you wait another 10 minutes. Making such beauty isn't simple. The city is huge now, taking up most of the region. I've seen the most creators keep their cities small. And now I get why. For my next project, maybe in Cities Skylines 2, I'll keep the size reasonable. It's just too much. There's not enough time, and yeah, my computer is really struggling with the load. We've got this Crossroad looking better now. What I've learned is that a bit of green makes any place better. What could be improved here? Well, first, I'd really like to see your ideas in the comments. There is always something to make better. That's what my city is about. I'm not doing just a pretty picture. I don't finish a spot and never come back to it. Alright, so we've got this service center for delivering goods to the pedestrian zone in the historic part of the city. It seems like only a few people really get what it's for. I've had a lot of questions about it on TikTok. Well, here we can really discuss everything. Look, to serve buildings in a pedestrian zone, Cities Skylines has service centers. It comes with one DLC that I always forgot the name. These are places where trucks bring goods to shops in the pedestrian area, and also where garbage trucks pick up trash. It's super handy because it keeps all the heavy traffic away from the pedestrian zone, and in this point from the historic center. But I was wondering where to put such a center, because there is no space left. That's when I decided to make it underground. I designed a long entrance tunnel to line up the trucks in a queue. Some people didn't understand and thought it means there was bad traffic. But let me explain again. This is a logistics center just for trucks. There is no cars with families. It's totally normal for trucks to wait for their turn to unload. Imagine a truck comes in, it should wait a bit, gets unloaded, and then leaves empty. That's what we see here, a queue for unloading with 2 lanes so trucks can line up, and 1 lane for leaving so they can go without any trouble. I'm even thinking of adding a 3rd lane to help spread out the tracks more in the tunnel. The best example of how I listen to your comments is this new edition. After an advice, I realized that someone really might try to rush across this green area to catch the tram. So we're adding a proper path here. It not only looks better but also makes it nicer for the residents. As I mentioned, the challenge with this green square is that it's actually above a parking lot. To add this pedestrian path, it has to be elevated, but likely there are paths available that work well in an elevated state without needing railings or barriers. Once again, we see that some really important things about the city might not be shared on TikTok. So many people won't know about them, but this is an important thing for our city's transport. Imagine if I tried to show these in a close-up on vertical video, it would just look like confusing gray areas. On a full screen, though, we can see there is actually a crossroads hidden under there. This is very important for the traffic that leaves the A1 highway and goes to the business areas of Outwall and Lake districts. Sadly, we didn't get to film the building of this network, but now we can at least make the markings here and think about how to make it better in the future. The main problem with this part of the city is that it used to be easy for people to walk across the street to the tram stop. Now we need to figure out how to connect the parts that are split up, like the area between the city's history museum and the Outwall district's waterfront. I've tried maybe making an overpass here, but I'm not sure yet what's the best way to go about it. It looks like the residents might have to wait a bit longer for a solution to this issue, but we will definitely solve it. Well, we are at the end of this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the end. Write in the comments how you like this format of a more detailed look at building our city. I believe it lets us get a better feel for the interesting story of Cityburg. The next video will be even more exciting. I'll show you the plans for the future tram lines and we will build them together. We'll also see how the main transfer hubs in the city are starting to shape up. Please subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up, and your support is really important right now. Stay with Cityburg.